Jeffrey Epstein's convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, has another jailhouse sit-down with the Deputy Attorney General. The president, given the chance, doesn't rule out a possible pardon. Virginia's Republican nominee for governor, Winsome Sears, tells us she's not behind in the polls and denies fellow Republicans are panicking about her prospects. Another takeout takeaway on the future of EV sales and solar installation, as many Biden-era subsidies head to big, beautiful law oblivion. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout and happy Friday. Presidential pardon powers are plenary. That's the fancy legal term. It basically translates as untouchable, unreviewable. Presidents, therefore, discuss these powers cautiously. President Trump tried to be cautious today, but also, since he knows a thing or two about exercising these powers, left a glaring non-answer hanging over the politically explosive Jeffrey Epstein matter. Trump refused, given full opportunity to do so, he refused to rule out a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's accomplice now serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking. Trump said nothing specific about Maxwell's fate, but the vagueness he left in the air muddied the waters, intentionally or accidentally, around a second day of meetings Deputy Attorney General and former Trump personal attorney Todd Blanche had with Maxwell in Tallahassee today. These talks occurred amid persistent calls from Trump's MAGA political base and elsewhere for more transparency and possibly more prosecutorial zeal in the direction of other, as yet unidentified and unprosecuted Epstein associates. How a pardon for Maxwell would address this growing political firestorm, one sufficiently intense, we should remind ourselves, to paralyze the House of Representatives earlier this week, beggars the imagination. What Maxwell could say of value also mystifies, since she continues to contest her prosecution and has expressed no remorse. We will talk to a former federal prosecutor about any new judgments the Justice Department might make about Maxwell's incarceration and also the rules that limit that latitude. But first, we start with our Justice Department correspondent, Scott McFarland. Scott, I want to play for you what the president was asked and what he said today about all this. Let's listen.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if
it's something I haven't thought about. It's really something
recommended.
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
Pick us up on what happened today and what we have been able to glean from this second day of meetings.
The only person talking about what happened inside that courthouse meeting room is the defense attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell, a man named David Marcus, who is acquainted professionally with Todd Blanche, the deputy U.S. Attorney General. But he's not specifically detailing the questions, the answers, or what transpired. He's saying that there were full questions and full answers, no Fifth Amendment invocations, no equivocating by Maxwell, that she was truthful, and that there's no offer on the table for her to accept or reject for sitting down and doing the talks. But what the president said today on the White House South Lawn has infused this criticism or cynicism that there's some type of quid pro quo going on here. And one former Department of Justice official said she's concerned that there's some type of trade-off being made for this interview with Ghislaine Maxwell.
And what's interesting about this, Scott, just to remind our audience, Ghislaine Maxwell, as I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, did not testify before a grand jury, did not testify in her own defense, has not been a testifying figure in her own criminal prosecution.
Her representatives have said that she has more to say, she has more to tell, and that she was happy to speak with the Deputy U.S. Attorney General and unburden herself of whatever other materials she wants to share. But it's a rather large caveat here. She has a history of being untruthful. She has a history of trying to mislead investigators. And what's more, her credibility is in question, considering she is still facing 12 more years this month in federal prison. And anybody facing those prospects would certainly be looking for some leniency.
And even those members of Congress, Republican and Democrat, who've called for more transparency in this matter, have raised doubts about whatever Ghislaine Maxwell might be telling the Justice Department or anyone else about this case.
Those who've been fueling this fire, alleging that there's some grand cover-up by the federal government, do not seem to be satisfied by the prospect of Ghislaine Maxwell sitting down and talking, or this request for grand jury transcripts to be released, thinking there's not a lot of meat on those bones either. It's hard to see right now the political calculus that cools off the controversy through a Ghislaine Maxwell interview, and most certainly through leniency for somebody who was a convicted co-conspirator of a sex trafficker of little girls.
Scott McFarland, as always, thank you so very much. Former federal prosecutor Mitchell Epner joins me now from the Broadcast Center in New York. Mitchell, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. I'm not an expert on these matters, but I've done a fair amount of reading, and I came across something called Rule 35 in the Justice Department procedures, in which the Justice Department can review a sentence for someone federally prosecuted, but there are specific rules and limitations about what can be done in those cases. Can you help my audience understand that?
So thank you for having me, Major, and you have it exactly right. Rule 35 allows the government to go back to the court and seek a resentencing within 1 year of the original sentence on the basis of substantial assistance to further prosecutions. We're well past 1 year since Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced. So the discretion that's available to the DOJ and the court is very, very limited here. There are a couple of loopholes. I do not think that this conceivably fits in them, which means that the only way that I could see that Ghislaine Maxwell could get any help from anyone in the federal government would come from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and the desk of Donald Trump.
Mitchell, how do you regard this effort to spend 2 days with Ghislaine Maxwell at the Deputy Attorney General level?
It's bizarre. I've been in and around federal prosecutions for over 30 years as a criminal defense attorney and also as a federal prosecutor who led sex trafficking prosecutions. I can tell you that I've never seen a case where the Deputy Attorney General was the person interviewing a potential cooperator. I've never seen the DOJ announce in advance that that they would be interviewing a potential cooperator. I've never seen a former defense counsel for one of the potential targets of the investigation, Todd Blanche here, with regard to Donald Trump, be the person who was conducting that interview. I've never seen any of this. It is completely outside of standard operating procedure at the Department of Justice.
And when people talk about the Epstein files and what is in the possession of the Justice Department, do you have any insight on how we should think about that?
So there was an enormous investigation. Imagine that as being a mountain. Then there was what was presented in front of the grand jury. Imagine that being an outcropping on the mountain. And then there was the testimony that was given to the grand jury. Imagine that being a rock on the outcropping on the huge mountain. And what's bizarre here is that the DOJ is going to court to seek permission to give the tiny piece of information, the testimony in front of the grand jury, which they need court permission to do. But the stuff that they could hand over by a snap of the fingers, the rest of the investigation, they're saying, no, we're not going to make any of that available. As I said before, this is truly unusual. And the last thing that I want to add is Ghislaine Maxwell is under indictment for perjury in the civil case, criminal prosecution civil case, for what she said about Jeffrey Epstein. So she hasn't gone on record in the criminal case. She did go on record in the civil case, and it was so egregious that she got indicted for it.
Mitchell Epner, that is valuable perspective on all fronts. I appreciate your time very much, sir. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Weijia Jiang is with the president, who has now landed in Scotland. Weijia, it's great to see you. I know you might have something to say about what the president did or didn't do or suggested or might not have suggested intentionally or otherwise on Epstein, but I also know in Scotland there are developments with future trade talks and the European Union. Take them in whichever order you prefer.
Well, we'll start there, Major, because the president did just confirm in the last hour or so that he added another meeting with a foreign leader to this trip to Scotland, which was largely going to be to visit his golf courses here at two various properties. He also plans to meet with the Prime Minister of the UK, as well as the top official here in Scotland. But he just announced that on Sunday he will also be meeting with the president of the EU. And of course, we have been following that trade deal very closely, Major, at least the potential for one, because they are such a significant trading partner with America. And they are not quite there yet. The president himself said that they're probably at 50-50 at this point to get over the line. As for the other two countries, of course, he is here in Scotland, and that is why he'll be meeting with the leader here. And he says he wants to essentially celebrate the deal with the UK, because if you'll remember, that is the first major deal that he announced after so-called Liberation Day, when he threatened high tariffs on countries that did not come to the negotiating table with him. And so this trip is a mix of pleasure and business, Major, and whether those deals come to fruition, we'll have to see as far as the EU goes. But it's a big one. It's important.
And since numbers around all
now,
the tariff...
Now, as for Ghislaine Maxwell...
Oh, go ahead.
No, you, please.
So I was going to mention that whenever the president talks about trade deals, we should emphasize that the numbers, 50-50, is the probability of reaching a deal, not what the reciprocal tariff rates could be.
Yes, that is a very important distinction, Major, because 50 would be a lot for any trading partner. And so, yes, you're right. That's just what he's putting it at, saying, it might happen, it might not.
Very good. Weijia Jiang in Scotland, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Tonight on The Takeout, civilians in Gaza are starving as confusion over aid deliveries and access deepens the sense of despair. Also, Virginia's race for governor. We ask Republican candidate Winsome Sears about the state of her campaign, reports of GOP panic, and the prospect of a Trump endorsement. Plus, green energy's cloudy future. How cuts to federal subsidies may change the market for electric vehicles and solar power. Albert Gore III joins us for our newest Takeout Takeaway. Welcome back to The Takeout. This is a tough topic. A summer storm of hunger has gripped Gaza in what humanitarian groups call, quote, mass starvation. The World Food Program said this week a third of Gaza's population of 2 million now must live for days without food. Also this week, the UN Secretary General called conditions in Gaza a, quote, horror show. CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay has the latest on this crisis and ongoing ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas.
Well, there tends to be one major sticking point in these ceasefire talks, and that is Hamas's insistence that Israel completely withdraw from the Gaza Strip, either during a ceasefire or afterwards. That is a non-starter for Israel, which fears Hamas would use that time to remobilize and to launch further attacks. For its part, Israel says that it's now considering alternative methods for bringing home the hostages, and we're hearing similar noises from the United States. Exactly what those alternative methods might be are uncertain. We also have France now recognizing a state of Palestine. The response from Israel and from the United States has been one in unison and negative. The United States effectively writing it off, President Donald Trump saying that it's meaningless. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that decision effectively incentivizes Hamas to carry out further terror attacks like the one it did on October 7th, saying, let's be clear, the Palestinians don't want a two-state solution or a state alongside Israel. They want a state instead of Israel. The United States and Israel, effectively the only two countries in the world to come down against what is, after all, a symbolic gesture, but it's an important one. France being a major European country and also the country with the biggest Jewish population in all of Europe. Chris Livesay, CBS News, Rome.
My thanks to Chris Livesay. The CEO of Mercy Corps, Jada McKenna, joins me now. Jada, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Describe for my audience, the best you can, what the situation is for civilians in Gaza right now.
Yeah, so for civilians in Gaza, they are on the brink of a mass starvation event. Since March, Israel has had a near total blockade on all commercial and humanitarian goods. In May, there was a partial lifting of that. So some humanitarian goods have been allowed in at very low numbers to a very limited number of organizations. And we have not been allowed to resume normal distribution centers. So under normal UN-led mechanisms, we would have 400 distribution centers around the country. So what you've basically created is a situation where for months there was nothing coming in, no food. Then in May, it was opened up a tiny bit of supplies, and then you're forcing very hungry people to go from having options of 400 sites to 4 sites, making them go to sites that have armed military, crossing military lines to get there, sites that are inaccessible to anyone who's vulnerable. So if you're elderly, if you're a pregnant woman, if you have young children, you can't get there. You don't have the strength to walk miles or the ability, and making them stand in lines. The situations are ripe for panic, for a little bit of distribution, but the reality is there just is not enough food to go around to feed people. And the markets have just collapsed. I have reports from my team that a bag of flour is going for $480 in the marketplace.
Which, let's be clear, most Palestinian civilians don't have.
Yes, there might as well be nothing there. It's inaccessible.
So this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is the one responsible for these 4 points that you described. They say, the Israeli government and the Trump administration say they're necessary because if they don't rely on those distributors, Hamas will steal the food and use it for its own purposes, so the civilians won't be helped either. So this is a way to make sure the civilians are more orderly, have their needs met. How do you evaluate that? And what's been the experience on the ground?
Yes, so we other NGOs, UN organizations have a long history of distributing aid in like the worst situations. We have never experienced any significant diversion by Hamas. There was a reports came out today of a U.S. government report that said there had been no evidence of aid diversion to Hamas going from 2023 till now. But more importantly, even if this were true, which we've seen no evidence that it's true, the best way to make food not a valuable commodity for Hamas, the best way to prevent them from getting it is to flood the zone with food. You've made it precious and valuable because you've not allowed it to come in. So these things just feel like very circular excuses.
And as you talk about these distribution centers, small in number, high volumes of people, a higher level of desperation, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, backed by the Israeli military, are armed. People have been wounded and killed in pursuit of food.
Yes.
The Secretary General estimated this week, I believe, up to 1,000 people might have been.
Up to 1,000 people. It feels like at least 50 to 100 a day.
Die,
trying to get food.
being shot in pursuit of food.
Yes.
At these distribution centers.
Yes, if not, and then a whole host of other people injured from injuries, maybe trying to escape crushing, trying to get the food there is. It's also just been very irregular in terms of hours and access. You have people.
The Jordanians said today they're considering airdrops of food. The United Arab Emirates said there's a 7,000-ton ship en route. Do those things give you any hope that this will be remedied?
Airdrops at this point in this situation are a stunt meant to delay addressing the serious situations. Airdrops are expensive. They are not efficient in terms of who you're targeting and who's getting the food. And they are dangerous. They hurt people. Airdrops are a last resort in situations where you can't get to an area because of an earthquake or some other natural physical barrier.
Not the case.
Not the case here. The reality is all you have to do here is open the borders, let in the food, and provide safe passages for the UN and other humanitarian organizations to do our work. This is what we do. We did it very successfully during the last ceasefire. Airdrops are completely unnecessary. And if there's a concern about Hamas getting the food or going to the most vulnerable people. None of that. There's no guarantee against any of that with an airdrop. So this really, it's a stunt. I can't describe it any other way.
The CEO of Mercy Corps, Jada McKenna, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for talking about this.
Coming up, my conversation with Virginia's Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears about doubts within her own party about her candidacy. You're watching The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Here is a look at what else we and now you are watching this evening. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says flights are underway from the Immigration Detention Center, called by some Alligator Alcatraz. Flights are both to other states and to the home countries of those being deported. The facility has come under increased scrutiny from human rights groups alleging that there are poor and unsanitary conditions there. Disgraced former Congressman Republican George Santos began his 7-year federal prison sentence today. In April, he pled guilty to wire fraud and identity theft schemes he used in part to enrich himself and secure his New York congressional seat. Santos's brief stint on Capitol Hill, famous though it was, ended when he became the 6th House member ever expelled from Congress. Doesn't miss many opportunities on social media, so Santos posted as follows: "I may be leaving the stage for now, but trust me, legends never truly exit." Legends. There are 2 off-year governor's races this year. Both will be kind of closely watched as potential barometers of national moods about President Trump and Democrats heading into next year's midterms. Virginia hosts one of those races, New Jersey the other. In Virginia, Republicans appear worried about their prospects. A Virginia Commonwealth University poll released last week showed Democratic gubernatorial nominee Abigail Spanberger with a double-digit lead over Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, who recently joined me here on The Takeout. My audience doesn't know you very well. You're already a historic figure in Virginia Republican politics, and you might become even more historic if you become the first African-American woman governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Tell my audience a little bit about you and why you should be the next governor.
Yes, so I'm running for, well, first of all, where are my manners? Thank you so very much, Major, for having me. And to your audience, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, I guess. Thank you so much for, again, having me. I am running to be governor of our great Commonwealth because we must preserve all of the great successes that we have attained. I'm talking about record numbers and people working. I'm talking about mental health and all that we've done in that space, putting money towards ensuring that some of our most vulnerable in Virginia have the ability to get the help that they need. And I'm talking about ensuring that we are safe and secure. We must maintain our police force, our law enforcement, Department of Corrections personnel. And education, as you may know, is a big deal with me. It's what brought my dad out of poverty when he came here to America in '63 with only $1.75. And it's what lifted me and will lift all of us, and our children will have a hope and a future with a good education.
Will you be running on the Youngkin agenda or the Trump agenda?
Well, I'm running on the wonderful successes that we have attained. And let me tell you who else is running on our Youngkin Sears administration successes. My opponent, because she told a group of 500 members of the Virginia State Chamber of Commerce that she is going to continue our economic successes, except that my opponent was nowhere near any of that. I mean, you probably just heard that AstraZeneca is coming to Virginia, and it's because they see business-friendly policies that will help create jobs, and so they want to come here. That's why the Virginians, I'm asking to please send me back as your governor. I am here ready, willing, and ready to serve. I don't need OJT.
So Politico recently ran a story that had this headline: Madam Lieutenant Governor, Republicans are panicking over the Virginia governor's race. It went on to describe your opponent, Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic nominee, having a sizable lead, donations not coming in nearly as fast as Republicans expect them to or believe they need to. Are you panicking about the state of your campaign? Should other Republicans?
You know what I would hope that the press would do is not take sides, because half of what was written was a lie. For example, in the second quarter, I have raised more money historically than any Republican ever has, and that's adjusting for inflation. But is that the story that the newspaper wrote? No, it wasn't. It was something that, of course, was geared towards making my opponent look much better. I raised $6 million. That article said I raised $2 million. And then it talked about the polls, which said I am down by, what, double digits? I am not. And just take it from my opponent, who has said that this race is a toss-up. And so for some reason, the newspapers and other media decided to write a different story. Look, none of us are panicking. We are going to win. Our internals are showing that this is also, as my opponent said, a neck-and-neck race, and that's after she had been hitting me with just about everything she could, and it caused me to be down 6 points in January. Well, we're back up, so she's out of whatever argument she has. And that's okay, because this is a movement we're going to win. We must bring the House of Delegates back in. We must win our Attorney General, wonderful Attorney General, Jason Miyares, and our Lieutenant Gubernatorial candidate, who's going to take my place, John Reed.
It has been reported, and since you have taken issue with some of the other reporting, I want to give you a chance, if this is incorrect, that you replaced your campaign manager recently. Is that true? And if so, why?
Well, we move people around all the time, and my campaign is not any different. All campaigns do that, and so this is not anything that's so special. And so what we know is we have all the right ideas. And what are the ideas I'm focusing on? Are the children learning? Number one. Number two, are we safe and secure in our neighborhoods? I mean, we just found the number 3 MS-13 leader here in Virginia. My opponent, of course, voted for sanctuary cities and voted against the Lake and Riley Act, which simply says if you are criminally, illegally here, you've got to go home. And then number 3, are jobs being created? And so we've gotten rid of over 89,000 different job-killing pieces of regulations, and we're going to keep making sure that there's more money in your pocket. We have returned $9 billion of the taxpayers' hard-earned money to them. These are the successes that I am running on, and we're going to continue them with me.
Madam Lieutenant Governor, President Trump has yet to endorse your campaign. Can you win without a Trump endorsement?
We are winning because we, again, have the right ideas, and the president wants to win. Once we know that, well, we're bringing all the right information to the voters. We are going to get rid of the car tax. It's time, and we have the money to do that. We had put it in the budget this year, and the Democrats, unfortunately, said no. We are wanting to make sure that businesses we have mega site pads ready and other sizes when businesses want to come, and the Democrats, well, poo-pooed some of that. I mean, look, we have the right message. That's what counts.
And in your list of accomplishments, I did not hear you mention Department of Government efficiency. There have been a lot of cuts to the federal workforce. The federal workforce lives and breathes and operates in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Do you embrace all of the Department of Government efficiency cuts, especially those that have influenced and possibly harmed those in the Commonwealth?
What we know is that we don't want anyone to lose their jobs. And I'm going to raise my hand and say I know myself what that feels like. And what we have done to prepare for job losses is to ensure that there are jobs available. And I'd like every Virginian to go to virginiahasjobs.com, because we have created over 250,000 jobs. In fact, those are job openings that are paying very high salaries. We have also endeavored to, since our election, we have created over 15,000 new business startups. These businesses never have existed. And we're telling just about anybody, really, who wants to come back into the job market that we have money that we've allocated. I believe it's $400 million for child care. And we have, if you want a different type of a job, we will train you. If you want to become an entrepreneur, we will help you. So we are prepared in Virginia. You know, I had my own small business, and we were doing quite fine until we had a former Democratic governor who decided to shut everything down. We're not going back in Virginia. We're going ever forward. That's all I know. I'm a Marine, and we know how to do this.
Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
thank you very much for having me.
Texas Republicans are looking to redraw the state's congressional map. We've been talking about that a lot this week. And as a result, tempers are flaring. A Democrat was forcibly removed from the state capitol last night. Why emotions are running so high? That's next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Texas Democrats are flying to California and Illinois to meet with Democratic Governors Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker. They're looking for a little political sustenance as they battle against Republican-led redistricting efforts in the Lone Star State. Just yesterday, this is kind of bizarre, a Texas Democrat who's running for Congress was forcibly taken to the ground and arrested inside the state's Capitol building while speaking out against the redistricting efforts. I want to bring in Republican strategist Lance Trover and Democratic strategist Christian Ramos. Great to have you both with. Thanks for joining me here at the family table. Welcome to the new set. You're both new to this. Hope you dig it. And thanks for following the no-tie protocol. I appreciate that very much. Lance, why do we have to beat people up in Texas to redraw district lines?
God bless Texas. That's all that's coming to my mind. I don't know what's going on. This redistricting thing is going to be very interesting. I think this is an issue that's been bubbling up for many, many years in the political circles on both Democratic and Republican sides. Republicans are taking, getting a lot of attention for it right now. But the fact is, Democrats have been suing in North Carolina, suing in Wisconsin to try to muck up the maps there because they didn't like what was going on. So this is going to be something that's interesting to see how it plays out. I will say both sides need to be really careful. My home state of Illinois, they're going up there. I don't know how they can squeeze out anymore. Democrats have left it to 3 Republican seats left. If you start pulling out, you're going to make other districts that Democrats have there more competitive.
Christian?
Here's everything you need to know about this right now. I was born in Texas. I talk to folks in Texas all the time. Abbott doesn't want this.
Greg Abbott, the governor.
Greg Abbott, the governor, doesn't want this. The Republicans in the legislature don't want this. None of them want this.
Trump wants it.
The only person who wants it is Donald Trump.
As you might have seen, I spoke to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, this week. He was even cautious about this. Well, I'm not really sure. I haven't seen the map. I don't know. Because he knows the vulnerabilities that come with redrawing maps mid session.
It's a bad idea for the Texas Republicans, and they're doing this for one reason. And Mike Johnson knows that one reason. They just passed some things that are really, really unpopular. And the more the people hear about them, the less they like them, right? Taking away people's health care, taking away people's food benefits. Electricity bills are going to rise. In Texas especially, they already have grid issues. So all of the stuff that they just did in Congress, they know how unpopular it is. And now, against their best wishes, their best ideas, they're going to do something that could potentially really hurt them in Texas.
My colleague, Hunter Woodall, spoke with the Democratic governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, about this redistricting question. I want to listen.
I've always supported independent commissions. I think it's you're asking for trouble if you put politicians in charge of drawing their own districts. You get the ironic situation where politicians create their own electorate rather than the other way around, the people choosing the politicians. So I think the more you can take politics out of it, whether it's judges, whether it's independent redistricting commissions, that's a best practice, and I hope more states adopt.
The more you can take politics out of it, the better it is. Oh, please.
Come on. I mean, take California, for example, right? I mean, they have a quote-unquote independent commission. I've worked on several races there. They went through, that thing is not independent. It's like 50-8 in terms of the state, in terms of a breakdown of the congressional districts. I'm not sure.
But that has not been legally challenged by either side, what the California Redistricting Commission has come up with.
Yeah, no, it's not been legally challenged, but I'm just saying, if you look at the map and how it's drawn out, I mean, it's how convenient it is. It's like 50-9. I mean,
let's be honest here. Let's be real. It is a pain in the butt to redraw these maps. They do it every 10 years for a reason. You are only doing this if you are politically desperate. This is a break the glass moment. They know that they're in trouble.
A lot of other political things came to the surface this week. There's going to be a huge Senate race in North Carolina. Now, Michael Whatley, the RNC chair, already endorsed by Trump, and the 2-term former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper. Analyze that one for us.
No, I think there's a lot of opportunity in North Carolina. What you're seeing there...
It's going to be a $100 million race season.
Huge.
Yeah, and we know that the governor was very popular there, and as a Senate candidate, he's very attractive to a lot of independents. He's very attractive to a lot of different people down there.
Trump's 3-0 in North Carolina, though.
Yeah, Cooper has also won every race that he's running. I mean, the guy that's on the ballot. And by the way, Trump dropping like a stone right now. I mean, that is going to matter. And again, you add all the stuff that they just did in Congress, that is not going to help the Senate.
Lance, as the resident Republican at this table, pick up that cudgel of where Trump is, where the big, beautiful now law is, unpopular, popular, whatever. What do you think?
Well, if we want to talk about North Carolina real quick, he's going to have the president's support. I thought what was really big is he's going to have Tom Tillis's support, and I think that's what a lot of people are looking at, particularly from an independent section of the voting. So he's going to have the Republicans and he's going to have the independents. It will be a big race. There's no question. Both parties know it.
Lance Trover, Christian Ramos, thank you very much. President Trump says his administration is having, quote, tremendous energy success, a takeout takeaway, and what his new sweeping tax and spending law means for green energy. That's next, right here on, you guessed it, the Takeout. Welcome back. President Trump says his administration is pursuing a, quote, future of all-out American energy dominance.
We're making incredible deals on energy, and we're unleashing all forms of energy, including natural gas, oil, and clean, beautiful coal. We are leading the world into the golden age, indeed, the golden age of America. With your help, that golden age will be built by American workers. It would be powered by American energy.
But what does the president's new budget law mean for green energy? Environmentalist and clean energy expert Albert Gore III recently shared his perspective with me for a Takeout takeaway. It's called the Big Beautiful Bill. It's now a law, not big and beautiful for green energy. It is aggressively anti-green energy, is it not? Break down the numbers and the impacts.
I would say that there was an aggressive ideological bent against certain policies in this bill. That was true from the very beginning. I think the end result reflects some of the hard work that was done, particularly on the Senate side, but a number of
to make some of those things a bit softer, delay them a bit.
I think really to show that this is aligned with a policy, a strategy to make America competitive and to bring investment and jobs into the United States. You know, a number of these members were able to speak to that from firsthand experience in their districts. So I think that where it ended up relative to where it could have been was better. However, relative to current law, prior to its passing, it was very negative for the clean energy industry in particular.
We came across a study from Princeton that indicates this law, when it all shakes out, will raise utility costs for a lot of Americans.
I've seen that study. It's not my bailiwick, but I think making it easier to bring new sources of generation onto the grid puts downward pressure on prices, and particularly the types of new generation that were accelerated by these policies.
Wind and solar in particular.
Correct, yeah.
And for someone who is possibly in the market for residential solar, I guess the word is act quickly, because the subsidies and the credits are going to disappear.
Yeah, there will always be a compelling case for rooftop solar because you'll save money on your utility bills. But in terms of lowering the upfront costs to install it, the tax credit is important, and it is phasing out over a relatively short period of time.
There is a regular description at the White House, almost daily, about the voracious energy demands that will be required to meet the challenge of artificial intelligence. And it sounds like the White House, if you look at all the executive orders and actions and regulatory moves, are believing that that's going to be fueled by fossil fuels, almost exclusively. Evaluate that.
Well, again, this is something I can speculate about. It's not my area of expertise. But when you look at all the sources of new load that's expected over the next decade or so, including EVs, including AI and data centers, it's clear that we need to bring on a lot of new and flexible energy generation. I think where EVs are differentiated from some of these huge, hundreds of megawatts required 24 hours a day for a data center, EVs are very efficient in adding new load to the grid. And they're very, very responsive to programs from utilities, from local governments to say, if you charge this way, we'll make it cheaper. And that will put downward pressure on electricity prices because if you charge at night, you're moving more electrons over the same infrastructure.
Right.
Meaning the cost per unit goes down. That benefits everybody, whether they have an EV or not. So thinking about the challenge, is really important. EVs play a very different role than data centers do, but we need a lot of new energy. And sometimes the fastest new sources of generation are, in the category of renewables.
And Albert, someone coming to this debate may hear the rhetoric along, well, we don't need these market distorting subsidies for green energy because subsidies are bad. And they might think, not unreasonably, that we as a country haven't subsidized fossil fuels for a long time, but we have, haven't we?
Yeah, there are a lot of studies that show that there's been a significant amount of federal money, taxpayer money invested in reducing the costs for oil companies to produce oil here, for refiners to do business here, to distribute liquid fuel around the country. So, I think few people would argue with the idea that over the 20th century, that was a huge benefit in building the country. Similarly, it's a huge benefit to the country right now to make federal investments alongside companies like Panasonic and LG and Samsung and Rivian, and the companies that are putting hundreds of millions, billions of dollars into U.S. manufacturing, U.S. jobs. That's really what the core set of policies that were unwound by the recent reconciliation bill were intended to do, and they were pretty laser focused on it.
And those investments now being siphoned down could possibly mean one of two things. Projects will shut down, jobs will be lost, or other investment dollars in the private sector are going to have to be found.
Correct.
What's the likelihood of either of those two scenarios? How do you see that playing out?
Well, it'll be case dependent. I think it makes things more challenging. The U.S. is already more expensive as a country to locate and to build a factory in, but it's a really compelling market to be in, and it's a great place to build and hire and grow as a company. So, the goal of some of these federal tax policies was to reduce the cost for a company to invest here relative to elsewhere in the world, particularly in China or in a country that is dominated by China. I think that things will shake out over time, but taking the long view, there will be some factories that will likely be suspended or, we hope none shut down, but
Scaled back,
that may
sure.
happen.
Yeah.
But in the long run, I think we can't lose sight of the goal, which is we need to be globally competitive in the manufacturing of products that are absolutely essential for the next century: batteries, electric vehicles, refining of critical minerals. And we've got a lot of work to do because the challenge presented by China is not going away. In fact, it's accelerating.
Albert Gore, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for the Takeout this week, and what a busy week it was. Stick around. The Daily Report, up next on CBS News 24/7.